Yalimat everyone, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Are you able to hear me okay? Sound is fine? Okay. First of all, I would like to thank from the bottom of my heart to ASG, Chairman Saab Shiraz, Mohammed Bhai, Honorary Secretary Karim Gillani, Naila, and all of uh, individuals who have been working day and night behind the scene um, and trying to arrange seminars and sessions to enlighten our audience regarding this wonderful tradition heritage of Ginan. Um, so I would like to share my presentation first, and then we'll talk about how I'm framing my today's session on rethinking Ginans. So let me share the screen first. Okay. So this topic, rethinking Ginan, music migration and transmission in modern times, it's a very important area of research. As we can see that, last 15, 20 years, I must say, although the migration of Ismailis in North America started somewhere in 1960s, and the vast numbers of Ismailis came from East Africa around early 70s, and especially when Idi Amin pushed Ismaili out of Uganda, and many of them migrated to UK and then in North America, especially in US and Canada. So their cultural memories and their migration go back to around 40 to 50, past 50 years, I must say. But the recent 15, 20 years are extremely important when we are talking about the term diaspora, the migration and transmission, especially when we are looking at how the world has changed. We used to call that the world has become like a global village. I would say this is the perhaps in this day and age and time, the world has come in our palm. You can search anything and everything through our smartphones. In the last 5 years or so, many things have changed. And because of those changes, the religious knowledge, articulation of religious expressions have also changed their way to not only communicate, but also share their richness through different mediums and technology. So in this talk, I'm going to cover a range of areas which I would like to first show in my screen. So as I said, this topic is quite fascinating, and what I'm going to cover today, just to give you some bullet points, because then we will be able to follow through the ideas and understanding of this particular topic. So as we know that oral traditions have long served as vehicles of knowledge in Muslim societies, tracing their origins back to the revelation of the Quran itself. For several centuries, Ginan have played an integral part of the Khoja Ismaili traditions. Community members learn, memorize, and sing Ginan as part of their daily devotion. In this particular session, I would try to focus on some of the performing aspect, mainly due to the migration and how the cultural and religious memories of the past continue to reshape, re-evolve, and renegotiate in between the historical past and modernity. There are three main questions which I would like to address, and one of them is how understandings of the Ginans find new meanings when people migrate from one geographical and cultural location to another. What are the creative and innovative ways the community members have initiated to retain the Ginanic tradition in the Western diaspora? And last but not the least, and the most important question of all, is what role does modern media and technology play in terms of the transmission of Ismaili Ginan, especially in the 21st century? So in my last session, and I would really highly recommend all of you, if you have not seen my last session, in which um, I had given a detailed discussion on the roots of Ismaili Ginans and explored the tradition of the Ginans, where the Ginanic music and Ginanic poetical meters come from. And we went through different methodologies and how the rich Ginanic music can be studied from the traditional framework. And we also studied from some of the giants who have already explored those areas, such as Dr. Haider Ali Dina, Ghulam Ali Alana. We also explored the work of Alwaz Kamaluddin and Zarina Kamaluddin, and many others. And we came to know that the rich Ginanic traditions have many different musical styles within it, because we are not talking about one particular peer. We are talking about a range of peers, range of geographical locations where they were located, range of languages in which Ginans were sung and composed. So traditionally, Ginan's music can be found in Shastriya Sangeet, classical music, but also the music from Gujarat, which is the Dhal music, music from Sindh, such as Kafi and Wai, and some of the Punjabi rhymes and Kafis and Dohas. So it's a very rich musical tradition, and one needs to really ethnographically, anthropologically study some of these genres, which I have luckily studied as part of my PhD study. And I started this discussion with this Indo-Pakistan musical categories. And I wanted to situate Ginan within the larger framework of Indian music. And as you can see here, Ginan is a part of devotional music, which can be situated as part of the music which is mostly sung in the sacred spaces without the accompaniment of the musical instrument. So it falls under the category of Naat, Azan, Marsiya, Hamd, and also alongside with other devotional traditions such as Bhajan, Kirtan, Shabad, Kafi, and Qawwali. So let's move on now. So I've already covered that part of tradition, history, oral memory, and how one can find those treasure of the historical past through the compositions of the Ginans. I would highly recommend you all, which are not able to hear my first presentation, to understand the traditional context. You must go back to the association's YouTube webpage and you can search that presentation. Now we are shifting the idea from the tradition to transformation, to migration, to diaspora. And I would like to start with this chart. It's called Performance Context and Meaning chart. I use this chart as part of my dissertation, which I'm turning into, inshallah, book soon. And it was my last chapter in which I studied almost 10 years ago, music beyond boundaries, Ismaili Ginan, migration and transmission. So when I was studying almost 10 years ago, I came to know, and although those things were already there, that there are so many individuals who are using their creative knowledge to express their love and devotion to our wonderful tradition Ginans through different ways. And to understand their love and devotion, it was very important to know that Ginan, which comes from the Sanskrit root Gyan, which means knowledge, has been always transmitted orally from generation to generation. Later, it was written down as a form of manuscripts. And in the modern era, the technology and recitation and sound has taken over. So when we are talking about Ginans, we must understand that the context of Ginan has always been in so many different places. One is the sacred space, so which is the Jamaat Khana, where we recite Ginan in a communal setting where everybody sings together as one Jamaat, which is very moving experience. But apart from that, we have some other new trends. I have given that term as new trends: creative expression, media, internet, YouTube, cultural interchange, exchanges, adaptability, globalization, new ways of approaching these demands, and many others, public and private contact. So I must emphasize here to the audience, whatever content I'm trying to share today, um, I have used this idea called dialogical anthropology by Dennis. Um, this idea is extremely important. Let me explain to you what I mean by dialogical anthropology. So what happens in dialogical anthropology is kind of an ethnography. It's kind of an field research where a field researcher goes out and conduct various kind of research, but the field researcher let their audiences to be able to share their own stories the way they would like to share. So being a field researcher, it is my responsibility to share their stories and experiences and expressions the way they have expressed themselves, rather than giving my interpretations to their expressions. Let their own stories tell us their own understanding of the rich experience they have gone through. So I will follow through these ideas through the dialogical anthropological framework and show you how, especially in the West, many of our individuals and who have gone out of their way to contribute their understanding of the teachings of the Ginan through different mediums and technology. When I conducted that field research a while back, 10 years ago, I also created this framework and I wanted to understand different recordings. To tell you the truth, when I was doing my PhD and I completed it around 2011-12, we didn't have that much of a revolution, information revolution out there. The smartphones were not there yet. So technology was still limited. Internet was there. Computer revolution was already taking place. But the pace in which the information has changed, the rapid pace in the last 5 years or so, you see much more material and ways in which people have shared their love and devotion to this wonderful tradition, which we call it Ginans. This framework I have expanded for the last 2 months or so, and also from 2011 onwards, wherever I was traveling, especially in East Africa, I was conducting field research. When I was putting this framework together in North America alone, I had conducted more than 250 interviews to a range of people, professional musicians who were trained in Western classical music, musicians who were trained in Indian classical musicians, those who were doing some new age music. Then there were some reciters who were recording their Ginans at their home on MP3 tapes, audio recordings, audio tapes. And I put them in this framework. And since then, I've been wherever I'm going, because it's a part of my devotion and love. Wherever I travel, I try to collect information. So the information which I'm trying to share today has been upgraded since I defended my dissertation in 2012. Here, I would like to particularly mention Professor Ali Asani and his wisdom as well towards this dissertation and in the knowledge which I'm sharing today. So we must understand, before I go on and explain to you regarding what has happened in the last 15 to 20 years, we must understand the evolution of the sound recording, music and technology. Before 1877, where the phonograph cylinder was invented, and to be very honest, 1895 would be the right time when gramophone record was invented, 1895. Before 1895 or 1877, we don't have any audio recordings. We were completely relying on text. And since 1895, the evolution of sound recording has created a revolution, because now you are not relying on oral memories, oral stories, cultural memories, some of the written text, but you are also able to record the live sounds. And I remember when I hear some of the speeches of Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah on YouTube or any other channels, it gives me a goosebumps. There is one idea to read their speeches and hear them out through other person. But when you hear the person, because when you are hearing the sound, you are not only hearing the text, you are hearing the aesthetic effects, you are hearing the emotions, you are hearing the cultural context in which so and so was so engaged and sharing his ideas through emotions, through speech, through expression, and also through diction. So sound really shape many new ways of thinking about scholarship. So we must understand the evolution of sounds. And when we are talking about gramophone record, we do have some recordings thanks to Arnold Beek's recording, which I will also share with you, which we have, which is from around 1935 to 45 era. And we will hear the earliest recordings and perhaps would be able to discuss how the sound recording has shaped and changed in modern times. Then 1930 reel to reel came. 1963 compact cassettes. I think this is very important to the Ismaili migration, because we have some of our individuals, which I call them Ismaili heroes, silent heroes, because they knew the importance of Ginans, and they single-handedly, in their basements, in their rooms, whenever they had opportunity, they had recorded their own Ginans in their own voices. And we have Alvaz Shamsuddin Haji Bandali's collection of over 600 recordings, which he single-handedly did it at his home in Edmonton. So I think the cassette era is very important. And we all know that after that, we had the CD, which compact disc came out in 1982, MP3, DVDs, and Blu-ray. And then now we are talking about cloud. So everything, whatever you may see, like it is just on our fingertips. We can search many of those recordings on our fingertips, which is available on clouds. So we must understand, when we are looking at the examples which I'm going to share, that how the evolution of sound, music, video, and recordings have really shaped the way we think in this day, age, and time. Okay, so old Ginan recordings, thanks to the courtesy of British Library, we have some recordings here, and they were sung by Master Juma Kaka Ali, and it was recorded by the National Gramophone Record Manufacturing Company in Bombay, India. And according to their information, it says it was recorded between 1935 and 1955. But through some of my sources, I was able to find that it was somewhere around 1939, 40. So let's hear the first recording, which was recorded by the Gramophone Company around 1940s. And this is Aba Teri Mohabbat Lagi. Let's listen to the recording, Aba Teri Mohabbat Lagi. Now let's listen to another recording. So from this archive, we can have almost 5 recordings available there. And I have picked 2 here. Aba Teri Mohabbat Lagi, as you can see that it was sung with the musical accompaniment, orchestration, and one can compare this music from old Bollywood style music, which has the accompaniment of a lot of acoustic instruments such as sarangi, harmonium, and the beauty of this particular recording is that still we sung this Ginan in the same manner in rag like Third, Bhairav, and Kalingara, which we have 2 flat note. And it's a beautiful rendition by Juma Kaka Ali. Now let's hear the other one. So you can see that both of these recordings are very similar to the tune, the raga, in which we sing Ginan in this day, age, and time. Many people have argued about this idea of cultural memories that they perhaps do change over the period of time, and they do change and evolve. But I would argue here is that the cultural memories tend to be as powerful and as important as perhaps the written culture or written traditions are. Let's move to the then if we move, we would find some other recordings as well from 1945.
Satagum padarya kai apane juan hare Sataguraya ya kai apane juan hare.
So I was playing some of the recordings from early 40s, so 1938, 39. Now we have another recording which I would like to play, and that recording is from 1945. But before I move to 1945, the courtesy to Professor Amy Kathleen Girasboy and UCLA collection, she has studied some of the recordings of Arnold A. Bake, which were recorded in Karachi, 1939. And I have 2 recordings here, 2 Ginans, Hamad El Khalik by Pir Hassan Kabiruddin, which was sung by Rahim Ali Muhammad, 14 years of age, and Satgur Avya Kahin Apane Duar by Karim Ali Muhammad, age 14, by Pir Shams Sabzwari. So let's hear those recordings from Karachi as well here. Let's hear the other one. So again, from what we have witnessed from Arnold Bake's Bombay recordings, which were orchestrated with the musical accompaniments, and these two beautiful recordings by the young individuals in 1939, Rahim Ali Muhammad and Karim Ali Muhammad, their recitation in a very I would say, emotional and evocative manners of these beautiful Ginans, Hamad al Khalik and Sadgur Avia Kahi Apne Duar, really reflects the similar patterns of the sounds in which we also sing these Ginan in this day, age, and time. Let's move to 1945. This recording, Satgur Avia Kahi Apne Dwar, which was sung by, although we don't know the real name, as per the courtesy to Ali Sundarji, who is also doing his project on documenting some of the old tunes of Ginans. It was sung by R.N. Ginan Ragi. So I must say this is the pet name. This doesn't look like the real name, but it was sung beautifully in very close to Rag Jinjoti. So let's listen to this recording.
Satgur padarya kai apane juan hare Satgur avya kai apane juan hare shane ke mare karine paaye lagiye goji
Beautifully recitation. And I must say that as we look at the evolution of the sound recording starting from 1930s, 35, 36, 39, 40, 45, and so on and so forth, one can see that people have felt that these sacred songs of Ismailis, and which we were called Khoja Ismailis or Satpand Ismailis. There is a beautiful article by Professor Ali Asani from Khoja to Ismaili Muslim. I will cite that article at the end. I must tell my viewers to go out and read this particular article because it expresses how the identities have also evolved over the period of time. Let's move on to, of course, then we see the computer evolution. Now, computer came into the scene. Recording devices were also evolving. And what computer has given a kind of an authority and kind of a control to an individuals who were trying to find their own voice, devotion to digitize some of these Ginans. So since the invent of computers, the work which used to be done by industries, like look at the music industries, there were EMI records, there were many other records, gramophone records, and many others. Those companies were making a lot of profits, and the artists were not getting enough money to support their art. Now, through the production and through the invention of computers, these sound recordings can be done at your home. The industry, music industry, and many other industries who were making a lot of profit are now marginalized. the idea of buying music through industry is also changing, because people are able to share their own music, own recording, own digitization at their ease at home. So the evolution of computer also has bring a lot of change when it comes to the dissemination of the recordings and the sounds and expressions of Ismaili Ginans. Then we also see a lot of advancement in the history of radios. And I remember when I moved to Edmonton long time ago, like in 2001, 2, I used to hear some of the Ginans were played in radio by late Alwaz Hassan Nazar Ali. And, we miss him dearly. And then there were many other radio announcers based in Toronto and many other places in North America. During our Khoshalis, they were playing some of our Geet and Ginans to celebrate some of our happy occasions. So one needs to also understand the evolution of radio, of course, the mobile phone, cell phones. Now you can see that you don't need to have the technology to record your voice. You can cleanly record your voice on smartphones wherever you go. You can take videos through your smartphones. So the technology has really shaped the way we think in this day, age, and time. And of course, the evolution of television and media and movies have also taken the expression into another level. I would like to highlight some of the individuals here, and would also like to mention that I have mentioned some of the work of Arnold Bake and the recordings from, which were given to me courtesy to Professor Amy Kathleen, and then Ali Sundarji and many others. I must say that there must be more recordings available, which people may have kept as part of their own historical information. And I would appreciate if those information can be shared to us, so we can study them, and we can also share those material with the larger community and take advantage from this wonderful tradition. When we are talking about Ginan reciters, curators, collectors, there are many individuals, but I would like to mention a few here because of the time I have given. But also I personally felt that some of these individuals have done outstanding work towards dissemination and collection of Ismaili Ginans. And I would like to start with late Alwaz Shamsuddin Bandali Haji. He started recording those Ginans in tape recorders. And I got those recordings from his daughter when he passed away. And he recorded them on cassette tapes. And there were close to like 200, 300 recordings of the Ginans, and there were 18 Ginans and Granth in them. Now you can find those recordings available online through the website, which I will mention. But he single-handedly recorded those Ginans in early 80s. And he was way ahead of his time, because he knew that these recordings are so important for the new generation to come. And he recorded them. He makes sure that the recordings also have the proper pronunciation to make sure that the languages in which Ginans were sung, their dialects, their pronunciation are sung and recorded in a better quality. So when you hear Alwaz Shamsuddin Haji Bandali's recording, you may find some of the noise, because now you're looking at the recordings which were recorded on tape recorders. And I must say that each one of you should check out his collection, and I will mention later where you can go and check out some of his work. And I must say he is a silent hero when it comes to the recording of our Ginan traditions. The second one I would like to mention is late Pyarli Jiva, who has recently passed away. I would put him into a category of Ginan collectors. He started collecting Ginans in 80s and 90s, and then he was also a founding member of the Association for the Study of Ginan. He also worked on the Khochki script. He was also able to engage many youngsters and also some of the retired people. So I remember whenever I was visiting him in UK, there were a range of people from young individual to retired people working at his home in London, either transcribing Ginan, recording Ginan, producing Ginan, digitizing Ginan, and especially when it comes to the transliteration, his work cannot be forgotten. So I would like to mention his name. And when it comes to the recording, especially MP3, I would like to mention Alvaz Kamaluddin and Zarina Kamaluddin. You can listen to their work in their own website, kamalzar.com. They have recorded over 750 Ginans to preserve the Ginan tunes in its traditional form. And then there are notable reciters, collectors, Shafiq Ravji from Calgary, Alvaz Amlani, Platinum Rahmatullah, Muhammad Khimani from Karachi, Bahadur Samji, Tawfiq Karmali, Al-Nur Saleh, and the list goes on and on. But these individuals have played a very key role, and of course, Arzina Merali, which I will discuss it later, have played a very important role when it comes to the recorded sound which we have available today. Now let's move on to the evolution of internet. We have discussed about the evolution of sound. We have looked at the evolution of computers. We have looked at the evolution of recorded sound through radio. Now, evolution of internet is also very important. Internet has completely revolutionized the way we think. There was a time we used to go and buy groceries. Now groceries are coming to our home. We were looking at the library. Now the entire library can be found in clouds. There's so much exchange of information one can find through the power of internet. And if you look at mainly from 1982 onwards, like it's been 40 years, but when it comes to Ismaili tradition, I would say some of the work which you can see starting from 1990s and mainly after 2000, you can see that a lot of work has been done. And then you would see many sites such as Facebook, YouTube, MySpace, and Instagram, and many of these sites have played a bigger role in terms of transmission of Ginan in the modern era. Okay, websites available on Ginan. So interestingly, when you have a time, just Google, because this day, age and time, we Google everything. When you Google the term Ginans, you would find more than 115,000 entries. 115,000 entries just to Google the term Ginans. And you would see that there are so many material has been disseminated through this technology, which has really changed the way we think, websites and internet. And when we are talking about internet, website, I would like to mention some of them, especially Ismaili Heritage Society. They started this field data, first Ismaili electronic library database in 1993, where you were able to search Ginan according to their theme and their titles and their occasions. Then in year 2000, Salman Spiritual came and an individual endeavor. Then you move forward, you would see many new, like Ismaili, the Institute of Ismaili Studies also have published 2 books in 2002, which are extremely important. One is by Professor Aziz Ismail and by Ali Asani. and then the material was also available, and the recordings were added later in 2000. So Institute of Smiley Studies website is also very important. Then you would see Kamal Zar collection appearing in 2008. 2011, University of Saskatchewan Ginan Central side has appeared, and Karim Tharani, I must mention his name because he is behind this beautiful database collection. And I must say, one of the most complete database in which you would be able to find Shamsuddin Haji Bandali's recording and many others. And one must see some of these work which are carried out mainly by individuals. Although one can argue about some of the content, either those can be shared online or not. As I mentioned, I'm following dialogical anthropology. I'm not going to comment on either these things can be done or not, but I'm here just highlighting how people have used technology to share their love and devotion towards Ginanic tradition. I would like to mention Ginan Central. As I mentioned, it is perhaps one of the foremost collection, and their motto of this Ginan Central is the curation of the Ginans for long-term access and preservation to foster research and learning in digital era. Website maintained by Karim Tharani. You would see the Ginan collection, Master Ginan Index, Recital, Ginan Commons, Archive, Studies, Tools and Resources, Reverse Lexicon, compilations, category, transliteration. I wish this website was up and running when I was doing my PhD, because it would have really helped me to navigate some of these material which I was looking for during my research. I would also like to mention, when I'm talking about silent heroes, Arzina Merali from Edmonton. She started this work called digital production because she was educated in digital recordings. She felt that the recordings were available, but perhaps their quality was not up to the par. So single-handedly, what she did from 1997 onwards, she worked with many individuals from around the world, from North America, from India, from Pakistan, and approximately recorded 1,883 Ginan tracks, which include 553 individual Ginans and Granths, which were recorded by more than 80 individual reciters from around the world. She got the academic support initially from late Alvaz Amlani, transliteration assistance from Pyarli Jiva, Platinum Rahmatullah, Alvaz Amlani, and prominent reciters in terms of numbers of recording who have sung mainly include are very well-known reciter, beautiful reciters, Tawfiq Karmali and An-Nur Saleh. And one can find her collection, entire collection, at the University of Saskatchewan Library, Ginan Center. And when I was interviewing her, when I was trying to find what really motivated her to carry on this tradition for the last 25 years. And I came to know from this humble individual that this is the labor of love. And she felt that although she doesn't recite herself, but this process has taught us a lot, because she felt that these Ginan must be recorded. These Ginan must be digitized in the most competent manner so our wonderful tradition can pass on from generation to generation. Now, I would like to share some examples, and I'm well aware of the time, and we have sorry about the technology, we have missed out quite a lot of time. I would try to cover as soon as possible some of these examples which are very important. The first example I would like to play is by Zulfikar Mulji. I interviewed him in Vancouver and Edmonton in 2008. Let's listen to his recording quickly, and then we will discuss about some of the contribution which he has made in North America.
oh my Savior, Murtaza Ali. No one else but you can save me, oh my Ali, only you can save me. No one else but you can save me, oh my Ali, only you can save me. Again.
So what Zulfikar Mulji did, he got inspired by the teachings of the Ginans, as he was very much into the recitation. He comes from Dar es Salaam in East Africa, Tanzania. And when he moved to Canada, he saw that a lot of our youth like the composition and the recitations of the Ginan and tunes, but they don't understand the meanings of the Ginan because now they are not living in the Indian context. They don't understand the language. So he devised this tool, teaching tools, and he experimented this tool in BUI system. And what he did, he took some Ginans, including Tariyetu Tarana and many others, 4 or 5 Ginans initially, and then he translated them into English. And he kept the same composition. And when he was teaching BUI students Ginans, he also sang them in English, only as a teaching tool. And he saw that his children now, BUI kids, were getting a lot of interest because now they were understanding the Ginans and their meaning. So he started initially with 4 or 5 Ginans, and now he has done more than 200 Ginan, translated Ginans, which has kept the same composition but translated into English so our children can understand the Ginans better. Okay, so next one I would like to showcase this work by Hussain Jan Mohammed, and I interviewed him in 2008-9 when I was doing my research, and some of the choir members, and I came to know that how they are emotionally connected with the tunes of the Ginan. Here is the sample you can hear. Now, I will analyze them at the end. Let's hear another one by Shams Sumar, which he released in 2003. It was his interpretation of sharing the notes from the soul as he got inspired by the teachings of the Ginan, but he has used modern sound to communicate with our youth. The Chai Walas, you may have heard, by Zaid Damani from Calgary.
the western skies. I'm blessed with the thought that I will not die. My body may fail, but my soul lives on through the strength and guidance of Hazari Mom. Thus being my palm and life goes on, right? It helps me see the light, cause without faith, what are we? We're falling, we're starving. I'm carving my thoughts in this coffin. I'm locked in, oh let me free. Got me on the path, and I swear I'll never stray off after that. Didn't do this myself, so it must have been that I've always been on Sirat al-Mustaqim. Sink to my knees and find myself in prayer. No, I'm never alone because you're always there.
This one, I found it fascinating, Ginan animation videos, and it was released by Jolly Gul, courtesy to them. It's an animation video in which they have used symbols and esoteric ideas to really encourage our young Jamaati members to understand the Ginan and its beauty.
सुख चरे रे गावंत्री वृंदारे वनमा सुख चरे रे गावंत्री चरण दे चरण ते सिंहले वाश पड़िया वृंदारे वनमा
Naseem Bhimji has sung this beautifully, and it's a wonderful story about the cow and cow's interaction with the lion, and how the cow's child addresses this whole situation. Very moving animated story. You must check it out. It's available on YouTube. Then you would see now, we saw the recorded sound, we saw the animated video, but also a visual artist such as Jalal Gilani is using the inspiration and teachings of the Ginan and putting them into his own canvas. So you would see his work here, Kapada dhove so kya hua, Dil dove so pave. What's the gain in washing clothes? The heart, let the heart be washed. So you would see now how the meanings of the Ginans are turning into different layers through different tools and different modes and modalities to communicate better with the age and time. I would also like to quickly mention late Shamsuddin Haji Bandali and his work with Tejpar, which he started in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And because he was well established as Indian classical singer, he was able to also compose new tunes of the Ismaili Ginans. And when I interviewed him many times, but at his home in Vancouver, it was really a moving experience as he was going through his journey of learning Ginans. And once he said that if harmonium or music was not there, he would have died way longer. An amazing human being. And I would like to play one of his renditions, compositions of the Ginans. So let's hear it quickly.
करोगे आए रही मेहमान रहमान आए रही मेहमान से दान सका
So we saw performances by Shamshu Jamal, a Bollywood singer, Rageshwari singing Sahib Jitu in Rag Yaman, Abda Parveen singing in Malko's Ahe Rahima Rahman, and then Alan Fakir singing in a very Sindhi style, in Kafi Sindhi style, singing Ginans. And it reminds me of the research work by some of the researchers from New Era, which says that the earliest Punjabi and Sindhi poets were none other than Ismaili Peers. And Uthi Alana Gure Banda was one of the earliest Ginan, which was written by Peer Sadruddin, and Peer Shams was one of the earliest Punjabi poet, and A. Sabaga was one of the earliest Punjabi Ginans. So now we can see that Ginans are not only part of Ismaili heritage, but it's a part of global cultural teaching and sounds of mystics. It's the messages of the mystics, of the peers, which have become global, because its teaching have inspired people to be connected. When I was interviewing Rageshwari, and I asked her, what motivated you to sing this Ginan? And she said, when I was going through the material of the Ginan, especially the Ginan, Sahib Jitu Moreman Bhave, Ram Rahman, Dono Ek Hi Gusaiyan, Murakh Maram Na Pave. People may call it their god Ram, Hindu god, or Rahman, Muslim god. In essence, both are same. Now, think about Sayyid Muhammad Shah has spoken about equality among other individuals in 15th century, and we are talking about Black Lives Matters in 21st century. The wisdom of the Ginanic teachings have inspired people beyond Ismaili communities. And this is our own heritage and legacy, which we must continue with a lot of enthusiasm and love. I would like to conclude my session. When I was interviewing Abda Parveen, and I asked her, after hearing the tunes of Ginans, do you believe that their composer were trained in the poetic and musical traditions of Sindh, Punjab, and Gujarat? She replied, I have no doubt that they were well versed in the poetic and musical traditions of South Asia in the same manner as the other great Sufis of this region. Their poetry and beautiful tunes are witness of their deepest knowledge of our culture and language. How can one write poetry and compose so beautifully without knowing the musical and poetic languages and culture? Similarly, all of these poets such as Waris Shah, Shah Latif, Bulle Shah, Peer Sadruddin, Peer Shams, and even Guru Nanak Ji, Mira Bhai, they were all divinely inspired people who chose music as a tool to their messages of peace, love, and humanity. What next? We must look at Ginans and their studies in different frames, so concepts to consider, areas to further explore. When we're discussing about Ginan in migration and transmission, we must understand the idea of globalization versus localization, cultural hegemony, power struggle. We can also find a fascinating area of comparing Ginans with offshoot Ismaili communities such as Satpanthis, Mahapanthis. We can also understand the evolution and the style of Ginanic music. We can also understand the current modern era of digitization and technology. The spaces of performances is also a wonderful area. From Satpanthi to Ismaili Muslim, the articulation of Ismaili Khoja identity in South Asia, the work by Professor Ali Asani is also extremely important to see how the identities have also evolved over the period of time. How does the technology has changed the way we think in this day, age, and time? And the last but not least, how the recorded sounds change acoustic essence versus the live context. Maulana Hazir Imam recently said, listening to music, practicing music, sharing music, performing music have long been an intimate part of life for Muslim communities across the world, as has been the chanting of devotional and historical or epic texts. Does music evolve and adopt according to different time and perhaps recreate, redefine its new meanings and interpretation? Does music has any boundary? According to Bruno Nettles, each music has its own history, and in the sense that all go back to and are in time equally removed from. The point of music origin, all have history equally long. They took different courses, some changing more quickly than others. Boundaries are metaphor. Sometimes we construct and even reify to create order out of chaos and to make sense of our world. By Ginan, The Construction of Society, from his book from 1984. Thank you very much, and I would end my session here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gillani. That was an amazing and very insightful presentation. I know I can speak on behalf of everyone. It was so interesting to hear about how the evolution of sound has kind of changed as we move to online platforms, as well as how this has kind of impacted the way we perceive sound. It was so fascinating to learn about the many individuals who have contributed to the recitation and collection of Ginans in the traditional tunes, like the late Awais Shamshu Bande Ali Haji and the late Pyar Ali Jiva. We've been able to see how the transmission of the sounds has been able to emphasize our past traditions while also bringing in new genres and new forms of Ginans. So thank you so much. It was a wonderful presentation, and now we will have a brief question and answer period. So one of the first questions that a few people have asked about is, across the internet, there are many different rags for various Ginans. So is there only one correct rag? And if so, how can we find out which one is correct?
It's a very good question, and I have addressed this question in my last session as well. We must understand that standardization, the school of standardization, is also a very recent phenomenon. When we are talking about British who were doing the census in India, they came up with the standardization of identifying people and their religion, such as, are you Muslim? Are you Hindu? And there were many Hindus, they didn't know either they're Hindus, because there is no one definition of Hindus, you see. And there were many Muslims who didn't know, hey, am I Muslim? I also celebrate Eid, but I also celebrate Diwali, And so this standardization model, I personally, being a scholar in this field for the last 20-25 years, I would say that, everything is evolving. Having said that, I'm not enforcing people to learn these new ways of Ginan. I'm not saying that. We must preserve Ginan in its original tuned and its original evolution way. Okay, what I mean by that, what I'm offering here is, when you go to Talwandi, Punjab, for example, we have the oldest Shamsi community living there. When I interviewed them and when I recorded them, their ragas, especially their Punjabi tunes, were fascinating. Okay, when I went to Sindh, Talar, Tando Bhago, Hyderabad, and when I heard them singing Sindhi Ginan, wow. You see, so this is a rich heritage. Okay, rather than taking the standardized approach of saying, black and white way, like Britisher did in early India, this is right and this is wrong. Music doesn't have any boundary. We don't want any divisions. You see, there is the diversity, the beautiful diversity of the Ginans. They were not written in only one language. they were not written in one style. They were not written in one musical meters. Diversity is embedded in the Ginanic tradition. Having said that, we must carry out the proper research on the preservation and the evolution of the Ginanic tradition. We must record them for our generation to come. Having said that, this is what, I don't know, some people get fear whenever they talk about Ginan, and I don't understand what kind of fear they have in mind. Ginan brings out so much rich heritage, culture, and beauty of our own past. We must be proud of it. Must. So we must preserve them, record them, and save them, and share them, disseminate them for the generations to come. And especially in the sacred spaces, we must try to stick to the tradition which has passed on from generation to generation. But then there are other places I've shared, which are not sacred spaces, am I right? Personal spaces. We must allow people to also use their own expression. Recently I was interviewing Tawfiq Karmali, and he said something which really motivated me and inspired me. He was saying, doesn't matter even if our youth are trying Ginans in a modern tools, such as using modern beats or bringing English into it. Let them understand Ginan through whatever medium they could. Eventually they would realize how beautiful and soulful this tradition is. Mm-hmm. So personally, being a researcher, I would say, let's keep the Ginan the way it has been from generation to generation. It has evolved in different cultural contexts, historical contexts. We must preserve that, but also we must appreciate our younger Jamati members to express their love and devotion to Ginan the way they would like to. But there must be a discipline, there must be a boundary. Like, you see the similar pattern in Qawwali music, for example. Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan's Qawwali can be heard in Bollywood. But technology also brings responsibility. Don't damage the tradition. You must be able to follow through the aesthetic and the soulful tradition the way it is. You are able to expand it, but don't mutilate it. Let's put it that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and so kind of adding on to that, with this new advancement of technology, with people coming in kind of like adding new genres to the Ginans that we currently have, do you think that's affected the cultural memory of the Ginans as they come in from the past?
It's a very interesting question. We need to, first of all, understand within the context. It does changes the memory. For example, the choir song, Ginan, which I just mentioned, Hussain Jan Mahmud. When I was interviewing Hussain and some of the choir members, it definitely has changed their memory. And when I was interviewing them, and they were sharing some of their rehearsals time where the children were really crying while they were putting together these Ginan in harmony. And they were saying they really, through these tunes and these words, they understood the deeper spiritual meanings of Ginan. You see? So yes, their memories are also changing. And you can't control them. You can't control some of these things. And we need to find ways people to connect, reconnect, like music is like an ocean. It flows through mountains, desert, and it takes, different essence and smell from wherever it goes through, you see. And that's where the beauty is, and many of these youngsters who are developing their own memories, I think they are able to feel more spiritually connected with the Ginan through their experience.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So I think we have time for one last question. So, as we saw with Zulfikar Mulji, as people are now transliterating Ginans into English and using the Ginan ragas to recite in English their Ginans, we don't see this practice in other traditions like the Ghazal tradition. So if you can further elaborate on your opinion of this transliterating of the
You know,
Ginans?
there are English ghazals.
Oh,
Chinese,
okay. Yeah.
Chinese Jan Mohammed, a good friend of mine from Toronto, has written a whole 2 books on English ghazals.
Oh, okay.
And interestingly, ghazals, you know, the word ghazal come from Arabic language. It has migrated to Persian and then Indian subcontinent. Yeah.
Okay, so we're seeing this in other traditions.
You know, so you know, one day if I have time, I would also show the parallels. You know, for example, you know, Kafi tradition. You know, you must have heard this Bollywood song, "Chal Chaiya Chaiya Chaiya."
Yeah. Yes.
You know, it's one of the, you know, like one of the, you know, most heard song. You know, this song is based on the Kafi Thad written by Baba Bulle Shah in 18th century.
Wow, interesting. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, and when Gulzar Saab was given the award for Filmfare Award for this song, and A.R. Rahman got the award to compose this song, Gulzar Saab said, "I don't, you know, this award doesn't belong to me. This song was originally written by Tere Ishq Nachaya Karke Thaya Thaya by Baba Bulle Shah in 18th century. Mera Piya Ghar Aaya, you must have heard that song. You know, Mera Piya Ghar Aaya, Ho Lalni." Originally, you know, Ram Ji Lalni, it's also by Baba Bulle Shah from 18th century.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you know, we need to understand that this parallel of devotional traditions, which we now, you must have heard Allahu of Sami Yusuf. You know, truly he is the one, he has no father of son. Allahu Allahu ye zami jab na thi ye jahan. So, you know, this is happening all over the world, and that's where the richness comes. That's where the beauty comes. So it is happening across, not only with Ginans.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Dr. Gillani. This was an amazing presentation, and I know that this Q&A has been very insightful for a lot of us. So now I will pass it over to Karim Gillani to conclude our session.
Thank you, Naila. Well, I always have spoken with the doctor whenever I have spoken with him for the program in Urdu, and now I'm talking to him in English, but I really ask everybody's excuse. I really want to talk to him in Urdu. Dr. Karim Gillani, कल मेरी आपके साथ बात हुई और आपने मुझसे कहा कि करीम, मैंने बड़ी ईमानदारी से प्रोग्राम बनाया है, बड़ी लगन से बहुत काम किया है. मैं दिल की गहराई से कहता हूँ कि बिल्कुल आपने किया है. मैं अपनी जानिब से, एसोसिएशन की जानिब से और तमाम नाज़रीन की जानिब से तहे दिल से आपका शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ और कहता हूँ कि वाकई आपने बहुत अच्छा काम किया है. जो नॉलेज हमें आज मिली है ना सिर्फ गिनान के ऊपर आपने दी, बल्कि आपने तो हमें कुछ टेक्नोलॉजी के बारे में बताया. कई ऐसे लोग होंगे जिनको ग्रामोफोन और ये सारी चीज़ें नहीं पता होगी. तो रियली आई रियली अप्रिशिएट. थैंक यू वेरी मच करीम. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our program. Thank you for joining us today. In America, we are celebrating like the Independence Day tomorrow. It's a long weekend. Even then, people have joined us. Thank you for your time. I would like to thank the chairman of ASG, board members for their help and guidance. Thank you, Naila Charania, for being such a wonderful moderator. Thank you, Firoz Virani, for controlling the Zoom, spotlighting, and the technicalities. Inshallah, we will see you all soon with such wonderful program in the very near future. Shabba khair, Khuda Hafiz.